who showed me how to parachute. This is Howard Morris, who piloted the old DC-4 it was.
The DH4, Howard keeps telling us, wasn't it?
I keep saying DC-4. Where have I got DC from, I wonder?
Yeah, the DH4.
The DH4.
That's it.
That's right. And that was a spare parachute I carried. The main one was on my back there that Howard is fixing.
And what was the type of parachute that you used?
Russell.
It was a Russell parachute?
American one.
Right.
This was the Cine Sound ones who took this second jump. And to get this shot, and this, and that, a plane with Cine Sound cameraman flew alongside to get these shots.
Yes.
He was considered a very good one because that's my favourite picture, this one, of all. Once it got to this stage, well, that was routine, all that and that.
So when you actually jumped out, did you tumble or did you face a certain way?
Yes, I faced face first and went head first out, see?
Yes.
And took up this position like that.
Yep.
Before I opened it. That's the ripcord.
Yes. And that's where you held on to
did I hang on to that? Was I told not to lose it? So, look at it here.
Yes.
See? Hanging on again. And this is Felix.
Felix is running along.
I was a bit small. If it was windy, I had a little bit of trouble collapsing it because it was a pretty big chute and, you know.
So what have they got wrong in this piece of paper here? You were saying that they had something incorrect?
Yes, they said that when I was 16, I asked them to give me permission to jump. That's not so.
Okay.
I had already jumped when I was 17, and they told me that I couldn't continue doing it. And then they had a change of heart and said, well, I could do it provided I followed all the rules they'd laid out.
Right.
And then they came, as well as the rules, you have to demonstrate that you can pack a parachute, which I did, so they passed that. And then I did 3 from this aircraft, 3 jumps from this aircraft. And
how long did it take to pack a parachute? Was it a fairly...
I can't remember.
Was it a long time?
No, the main thing was...
having everything laid out correctly.
Blowing it up and making sure it was dry.
Yes.
Very important because if it's damp and the shroud lines stick together,
yes.
then you need a shroud. A real one.
A real one.
Yeah. So I think that's all I can tell you on that page.
Right, yeah. And the book...
Except that now
yes.
There's a movie, that's that little disc you have.
Yes.
Of that particular jump, which was the second one in Melbourne.
Right.
That's all I can think of on that page.
Okay. And the sketchbook you got below on the front cover there, you've got
some wag did that in one of the newspapers. Dad cut that out. I wouldn't know where he got it.
Okay. So your father cut that out for you, did he?
Yes, yeah. Everything of here is what Dad saved. Otherwise, with my main book, that sort of was never returned.
Yes.
And if it hadn't been for my father saving these, I wouldn't have had anything.
Okay, so
that's all. Oh, these are the rules that they sent me that I had to follow.
So this was sent out to you by
This was sent out after they said I couldn't jump, and then they had a change of heart. I don't know, maybe Cine Sound approached them, I wouldn't have any idea, but suddenly they had a change of heart and said I could, provided I observed all these rules.
Rules, yes, yeah. And the photo on the top left-hand corner there is...
Oh, that's when I was going to school, and I belonged to the Junior Aero Club.
Right, in Victoria, yeah.
In Victoria, yes, at the Royal Victorian Aero Club.
And the photo up the top right-hand corner, that's...
I can't remember why that was taken. I don't
It's
know.
a publicity shot of some sort, was it, or they just
I've
took
no idea. I
Yeah.
know that somebody reported in a foyer of a hotel in America,
Yep.
they saw this in full length standing, but I never saw it, and I don't know. I don't know even who took it. No idea.
No idea?
No
Okay.
idea. No.
Yeah,
That was,
the photo below there was...
That was when I first got my license.
Okay.
This is the day I got it. These were two nurses who also passed their test on the same day. The three of us.
3 of you, wow.
Yeah.
Yep.
They were two nurses from which hospital? I don't know. I think it's written somewhere
Mm-hmm.
where they were from. And that was when I got it. I never ever bought a dress for myself. My mother did my shopping. I didn't have time. I remember she turned up with a new dress for me.
Yep.
I remember that one. That's silly. I think, yes, that one's this is the Porterfield. This is the undignified landing in Adelaide.
Yes, and this was with yourself and Felix?
Yes, we were coming back from an air show in Broken Hill.
Yeah.
That was a week old. Yeah. And here's Frida Thompson, the one that I was asking Nancy Bird about today.
Okay, yes, yeah.
She was a very good pilot.
And she was from Victoria as well?
Oh yes,
Yes.
Victorian Aero Club
Yeah.
also. And she had a sister Claire who also was flying. What's here? Ah, yes. That, you want to look
Yeah, you can turn it
at
around.
this? I don't know what that is, why I have that. I can't remember if I flew it or not. Can't remember. So long ago. I know that this painting was...
Now that's the portrait of you.
the portrait, yes. There were so many copies of that made, and they were sold for the boys in the Air Force, some sort of comfort fund or something of that sort,
Yes. Yeah.
whatever they called them those days.
So that was in the wartime.
Oh yes,
Yes.
yes. These were all members of the Air Force
Yes.
here. That's why the photos of that painting were sold to raise money for what? Anyhow, for one of those funds for them. Oh, they're all Air Force fellas, here and here.
Okay.
Yeah, she's gone, and her sister. Right, oh, that's those ones you have already. These, because
Yes.
you'll edit this.
Yes.
The ones you don't want.
Yeah.
Oh, there's the portrait.
So that's the... Oh yeah, that's the photo of the portrait.
Yeah.
So that came out of the paper somewhere.
Yes. Don't know which one. They just cut them out
Yep.
and kept them. Probably people have still got copies of that.
Yep. And that's a photo of you parachuting down on the left hand.
Yes, on the way down. You see, most of the parachutes then were shaped like umbrellas, but this, you notice, is like a big mushroom, flat top.
Yes.
Ripcord again.
Yeah.
Oh, did I learn to hang on to that? Oh, that was just girls flying.
So who we got in the top picture there, Jean? Starting from the left.
This is the day I got my license.
Yeah.
This is the examiner. These were the two nurses who got their license the same day as me.
Yes.
Here. Wish I hadn't lost that helmet and goggles. However, and I think this was one of my instructors, Laurie Johnson.
So that was Laurie, was it?
I think that was Laurie Johnson because he was out with us and the examiner, and I know that he was the examiner. Oh, that's just me coming in with some passenger or one of the girls. I don't remember who that was.
Yep.
They were a lovely old plane to fly. Gee whiz. Oh, you've got that already. Ah, this was in the Washington Post in their Parade of Youth. That's why that picture got to America.
Okay, yep.
The same gear, isn't it? Yeah, they had a magazine in America, the Parade of Youth. That's my father's favourite. On the way down, and that's the way I went out, head first. You
Yes.
see, it hasn't opened. I haven't opened it yet because I always had a lecture from Howard before.
So how high would you have been there, Jean, do you think, on that? Is by today's
Doesn't
standards you're
say.
fairly low.
I usually jumped somewhere between 2,000 and 3,500 feet.
Yes.
Usually that was. But Howard always warned me, clear the plane well and truly, so that you don't take us with you.
Yes.
That's dear old Dad. He replicated everything.
Yep.
Well, that you have here.
Yes, that's the same
See?
photo, yeah.
Yeah. See, this were the ones that were lost in the other scrapbook.
Okay.
This, I think you have. That article, haven't you?
No, I haven't got that article yet.
You haven't. Oh, I don't know what it's about. Just about the same stuff. The parachute. Actually, the parachuting took over. I was primarily a pilot, but I don't know, this got, this took on wings of its own, this jumping bit. And I was only in it, we used to earn a few dollars that way at the, when we went barnstorming, but
Yes.
that wasn't the great love of my life. The love of it was flying. And it turned into all this stuff. Aha, this is the day when they said, okay, you follow the rules, but you have to learn to pack a parachute. And so I did. The fellow from the Department of Civil Aviation and Felix and me. That's on the last lap. I just about finished there.
So your parachute's just about packed.
Yes, just about ready for business there.
Yes.
Now here is Lord Wakehurst. Wakehurst, I think that was his name. And this was Esther Lestrange. She's not around anymore either. Goodness me. Lord Wakehurst, yes. His wife was there too.
Yep.
And this was the occasion of the 150th celebration of the settlement of Sydney.
Right.
And this was at, today it's called the Kingsford Smith Aerodrome. I think those days it was just Mascot, wasn't it?
Mascot, yes.
Yeah, see, there's parachuting forbidden.
Okay, yeah.
And then I was allowed. Now, after this day there of the 26th of January 1938, there was a ball at David Jones. And she was a young pilot here in New South Wales. And that's the pair of us there.
And what was her name, Jean?
Nancy Edwards.
That was Nancy Edwards.
She died young. Yeah. What a shame. And this is her again here. Same day.
Yeah. And what happened to her?
I don't know. I think somebody once said she had something like leukemia or something.
Okay, yeah.
But she was learning with the New South Wales Aero Club, and I was with the Victorian one, and they were competing to see which. See, she was about the same age as me, and there was competition between the clubs at the time to see which one they'll get off first.
Yep.
So here, that was the end of the jump.
Yes, and that's one that's.
I said, don't pick me up. I'm perfectly all right. You can see the way I hold my hands. I grazed my fingers on the runway.
Yes.
It was all grass in those days, except one runway. And guess where I landed?
On that runway.
On the runway. And the wind was a bit high, and I got dragged along, and I was trying to collapse the chute, and my fingers dragged, and oh dear. And I said, I'm all right, it's just my fingers. But no way. The newsman was there. Pick her up.
So that the photo on the left of that page there, Jean, is it?
This one. Must have been a later one, because I was 18 there, and the first ones I was only 17.
Okay. Yep.
So this must have been one of the later jumps.
Right, yeah.
I don't like that one. It was quite unnecessary.
Yes.
For graced fingers, you don't pick them up like that, do you?
No, a bit over the top.
And this. What a shame it's such a small picture. This was my big disgrace.
Yes.
This one.
This was Townsville.
This was Townsville. I lost the ripcord. I did. And that was a lagoon. And I landed way out in the middle of it.
Yes.
I lost the ripcord. The people of Townsville were wonderful. They went out and searched the area where they thought I went in, and they found it and sent it back to us. Oh, we loved the people of Townsville then. But
And you
it was very embarrassing coming out, because a policeman came in with a horse
yeah.
for me, and he was on horseback. I was wet, I was dirty, I had water lilies hanging on me, and I had to face these people. And that was the most embarrassing jump I ever did. Terrible.
So you flew up there with Felix Mueller.
Oh, we followed the air shows.
Okay.
They were barnstorming days.
Yes.
Oh, here's the old de Havilland 4.
DH4, yeah.
Yeah, I spelt that out.
Yeah.
And I don't know where that. Oh, that must have been Geelong. And on the way down. I don't think there's any more. What's here? Oh, that was when I had a little go at gliding, but no, I liked an engine out front. It didn't appeal to me.
So that
I
was,
joined the gliding
yeah.
club, but so did Felix, but no, neither of us really took to gliding. I think we went a few weekends and that was it. And that's all.
So who was that person up the top left-hand corner of that page, the last page there, that was trying to track you? And that was something that appeared in AOPA.
Yes.
How long ago was that, Jean? Was that something your father had put in there?
No. This is when somebody found me about 8 or 9 years ago.
Yes.
And they tried the Pilots Association, the Ripcord Association, and they tried around the Women Pilots Association, but I dropped right out of it. And this Grace here, Grace Iggulden, she put an ad in the help wanted in the Women's Weekly. And sure enough, that found me. This I had no knowledge of, but I
This is
signed
the
it.
postcard.
This postcard was
Yes.
sent.
It was signed by yourself and
Yes,
Felix.
and Felix and somebody else. I can't remember another one jumping, but he must have. Don't remember him. What's this? I can't remember that. That's the plane I jumped from at Mascot.
Okay.
But maybe it was. It's all so long ago, I can't remember, Greg.
Well, you've done pretty good, Jean. Thanks very much.
Right, you're most welcome.
So how did you get to know Howard Morris Sr., Jean?
Well, Howard Morris had a plane that Felix used to use for parachuting in the air shows.
Yes.
And when I started, which was quite by accident, as you know, a one-off supposedly,
Yes.
and that's how I met Howard, because he was piloting this plane that I jumped from. And he was quite a fatherly figure.
So he was very friendly and warm
Very
in nature?
very warm fellow, very nice, except when he gave me instructions
Yes.
not to open the parachute because he didn't want to come with me,
Yeah.
when I went down. So, and Felix, I was shocked to know recently how young he was, because I always figured him to be a fellow around 28, 29, 30, in that
Yes,
age
yeah.
group. And now I discover he was only a couple of years older than me.
So how did you first run into Felix?
Well, Felix was jumping. We were at this air show
Yes.
that they held at Essendon Aerodrome, and we were watching Felix Müller do a jump. And that's when one of the other club members said he wouldn't leave a plane even if it was on fire. And being the stupid age I was, I said, oh, nothing to it,
Yes.
you just hop out, pull the ripcord and float down. And that's when he said, I bet you 2 hours flying, you wouldn't be game if I could arrange it. Not much I wouldn't.
Yeah.
So, and I got my hours too.
Yep.
Free. Yeah, he paid up. And so he went up and spoke to Felix, and he agreed to do it. And Howard was the pilot with his old de Havilland 4.
Yes.
And, but of course, I never said anything because it was just,
Yep.
just something out of the aerodrome.
Yes. Yeah.
Except that when I got home, Dad heard it on the radio on the evening 6 o'clock news. They were not amused, And then, of course, Cindy Sound came along and they wanted to record one.
Yes. Yeah.
I suppose for posterity or
Yes,
something,
yeah.
being the first one. And so, Dad and Mum said, oh, well, maybe one more. One more led to another and another.
Yeah.
I had them already,
So when you went up with Howard, did he give you the instructions to jump, or did you tell him when you were
I
ready?
had instructions from both sides.
Okay, yeah.
Because on this side, he was telling me to make sure to clear the plane so he doesn't come with me.
Yes.
And on this side, Felix was saying, hang on to the ripcord, don't lose the ripcord because I have to send to America to get another one. And between every time I jumped, they both drummed it into me.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's how I hang on to ripcord so much. It was embedded in my brain.
So being a female in those early years, those two gentlemen treated you very well.
Oh yes. Oh,
Isn't that good? Yeah.
Oh yes, I have very good memories of both of them. Of Howard's little boy,
Yes.
4-year-old Eric with his little flying flea. That was fun. I was more in tune with Eric than I was with these two. At 17 you haven't got much upstairs.
Yep.
And I think, well, at my age, I wouldn't do it.
So tell us about the time where you found out about Howard crashing his plane with the student on board.
Yes, well, we all had the flying school going in Hamilton.
Yes.
And because Felix was an aircraft engineer, he was also a pilot as well. And they were barnstorming days. You see, you're too young to know what fun the barnstorming days were.
Yeah.
Wherever there was an air show, off you would go, and then we got paid. You know, I think in Townsville, there was the person who was behind it had a private zoo up there. I think they were in Meat.
Yes.
I forget their name. But he had a private zoo. We got paid £125, which was a lot of money for 5 minutes work, you know.
Yes, yeah.
And expenses paid up because we had to fly up in the Stinson.
Yes.
That's the Stinson where the wing fell off later
That's
on.
right.
I'm glad I wasn't in that one. So, yes, you got paid for doing this. I mean, you didn't do it just for, I did it for fun. But
So
we got paid.
So with Howard, was he on takeoff or was he on landing when he crashed that time?
He flew into a tree.
So was he?
He had a student with him.
Yes.
And the Porterfield was a mess. Dear Howard, he bit his tongue off. It was hanging by a thread.
Yes.
And they stitched it back on. The last time I saw him, when I was going back to Melbourne, because the flying school was in the tree. So they stitched his tongue on, and it worked again, although when I last saw him he couldn't talk because it was full of stitches.
Yes, yeah.
He was in the hospital and I came back to Melbourne.
So which hospital was he in? That was in
Hamilton.
In Hamilton Hospital, yeah.
And apparently he came back too, because then Felix got another plane. So somebody told me, was it Howard Jr.?
Might have been Howard Jr.
Yes, that he got another plane and another instructor, and the flying school went on. Or did you tell me that?
I think I might have told you that too. I think.
You told me that. So, and he went on into the Air Force then as an instructor because war was on.
That's right, yeah.
And we were restricted at the Aero Club to 4 hours flying a month. And
that's not much.
It's not much, and not only that, when I came back to Melbourne, and Dad had insisted that I do an extra course when I left school, because I got sick of the school uniform, and so I was very grateful because I was able to go into an accountant's office.
Yes.
And then I met a couple of girls there, and I found out, well, there's a different life, and I started going less and less to the aerodrome. Half of them had gone away into the Air Force anyway, and
Yes.
there were times that changed flying. The old barnstorming days were gone, and breaking all the rules were gone.
Yeah.
You know, so it was different after the war.
So what are your earliest childhood memories, Jean? Where did you grow up?
Well, I grew up in Melbourne. My earliest childhood memories was, I think my mother was a frustrated ballerina.
Yes.
And I had ballet lessons. Have you ever heard of Robert Helpman?
No, I haven't.
You haven't?
No.
Did you see a movie with Nureyev, Don Quixote?
No.
Bobby Helpman was a ballet dancer and
Yes.
an actor as well, he turned out to be. And I went to Madame Saranova, who was a Russian who'd been taught by one of the Russian greats over there. And I was 6 and Bobby Helpman was 17. So I was in the ballet school with him. And Mother always tells me a story that Madame Saranova said, go over to Bobby Helpman, go over to the corner with the baby and learn how to finish a pirouette. So that was my earliest. But we had she had concerts at the Palais. Do you know Melbourne at all?
Yes.
You know the Palais
Yes.
Theatre in St Kilda?
Yes.
Well, I did 2 shows there
Okay.
with her, yes. One of them was a sort of silhouette, a ballet, a duet, pas de deux they call it,
Yes.
for your information if you're not a ballet freak. And behind a screen, and it came through as a silhouette.
Okay.
That was one of mine. And also we did another one to the Teddy Bears Picnic, and we little ones were all, the pas de deux was when I was older, but the early one I remember, the little ones in the class, was a ballet around Teddy Bear's Picnic, and we had to wear these costumes all covered, and I can remember the whiskers in the lining were coming out in my mouth while we were doing our bit.
Okay, yeah.
So, but I did it because Mother loved ballet.
Yes, yeah.
And, but I got into terrible trouble. You see, I was more the Lucille Ball type. Have you ever heard of Lucille Ball?
Yes, I watched her shows.
I was more her type than drama, and I got put into a part that didn't suit me one bit. Is that thing going, is it?
Yes, it certainly is.
Oh, gee. And this girl, Mabel King, she was the angel of death, and she had long black sheer things that fluttered. So I duly died on the stage, and then something got into me. And I was supposed to be dead, and I lifted up my head and I winked at someone in the front of the audience, and they all went into peals of laughter. I got into awful trouble because I turned the drama into a comedy.
Yes.
And no one was amused again. So that was that. And then...
Your
what
father
else?
was in the Merchant Navy, was
In
he?
the Merchant, yes. Yeah, he travelled the world. That's where he met Mum, in
Okay,
Wales.
yeah.
And then, what else? Oh yes, piano. Piano lessons. I had no time to play. Piano lessons, I had a horrible teacher. She had a little cane, and when I hit a wrong note, she used to give me a tap on the knuckles.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't like that.
So you wouldn't enjoy music
I
with that?
learned music for 6 years, and I can't play a note.
Yes.
Because I didn't like it, but Mother, God love her. So, and elocution lessons, of course,
Yes.
because Mum didn't want me to talk with her Welsh accent.
Yes.
So I had to have elocution lessons so that I wouldn't have, pick up Welsh. And Dad had a bit of a peculiar accent from his father, being Scottish.
Yes.
And but who did they get to teach me? A New Zealand teacher. You know? So and between that and schoolwork and homework,
Yes.
I didn't have much time to play. So my biggest fun was then going out on the weekends.
Yep.
When I joined the Junior Aero Club. That was where it all went. So
Yeah.
we've come full circle now. Oh dear. Funny.
So where did you meet your husband, Jean?
I met him through the accountant's office. He was he an account there or a friend of the fellow? How did I get into the accountant's office? That's a story.
Yes.
Because when we had the school going in Hamilton, you see, I got paid when being a dog's body around the aerodrome. When I say that, I used to help fold the parachute. We'd blow it up in the slipstream and run into the house where there was a nice wide hall with polished floor, and we'd fold it. And but I worked in the hotel. The son of the hotel owner was a friend of Felix, so I got to work in the office there. And one day when there was a couple of businessmen going through and I was made out the account, one of them said to me, if you ever come to Melbourne, our accountant could use you. And so when I went to Melbourne after Howard had his accident, I thought, well, I'll ring up first and see before I hunt around. Sure enough, he remembered and said he'd make an appointment, which he did. And the secretary interviewed me and I got a job there.
Wonderful.
So somehow was it
So your
that
husband
business when?
was he was out in Australia,
Oh,
like-
he came out early 30s.
early 30s,
Yes,
yeah. So he was the first of the backpackers.
Sort of, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, sort of.
And he come out with a friend?
Yes, but that's past. Yeah. So, anyhow, in 1943, when I thought everything was behind me, this is where Nancy Bird wrote a letter. She was rounding up all the women pilots and trying to get a ferrying service going. And I don't think she got it off the ground. They had one in England, but I told her I couldn't because first son was on the way.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I beat myself over the head for marrying so young. With Raymond, was when he was 14, we got a go-kart. And I had 3 years of fun with the go-kart. And Raymond can tell you how when they flagged me off the track, I chased, in the go-kart, I chased one of the officials and he ran like mad.
Wow.
Yeah. And I should have known better because I was 40 then, you know, or in my 40s. But you see, nothing dies if you're born that way.
Yes.
You sort of stays with you. And I can remember that, oh yes, I think I'm the first one that stalled off the top of a loop in a go-kart.
Okay.
I hit something and I went up in the air and down I crashed. But and one day I came home, we'd been out go-karting and it had been raining and it was muddy and you wear a helmet and goggles then,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I won't mention his name because he's known in Sydney. He was a radio and television announcer,
Okay.
and who had a beautiful wife who was a model, blonde. I won't mention names because, yeah. So when I got home, this man and his beautiful model wife were there, and I remember. I walked in, I was in a pair of overalls, and there were no facilities down at Tarrant Point to wash up. So when I took off my goggles, of course, I had a black face but white rings on my eyes. And when I walked in, there's this gorgeous blonde model, and my husband looked at me and he turned around to this fellow and he said, I can remember, and this is my wife. You know, just like, oh dear. Yeah, but that was fun. But when Raymond turned 17, then he wanted to get into the cars.
Yes, yeah.
So, but that was fun.
Yeah, that was really
I could have
fun.
carried on with that.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, but the go-kart had to go and the car
Yes.
came instead.
Yeah.
So I don't know what I was frustrated or what.
Yeah. So when you were flying over your parents' house and your mum was,
Oh,
she
yes,
was,
she didn't like it.
she
I
didn't
used
like
to-
that.
She wouldn't come out, and I'd circle and circle and circle.
This was over Rathdown Street, was it? Or
Yes,
this is,
yes. No, we'd moved from there to Canning Street, I think. Anyhow, it was in the vicinity.
Yes, okay.
Yes, but no, it wasn't that Rathdown Street house. It was a couple of streets further up.
Okay.
And I went round and round, and she'd dig in. She wouldn't come out, you know. Those Welsh people, they're frightfully stubborn. And she wouldn't come out, and I wouldn't go until she came out. And she used to come out with a towel. And you could see the way she waved it at me. She was annoyed. She'd go. She wouldn't wave it nicely. She'd flick it like that.
Yes.
You know. And then I'd go away. I was satisfied. I got her out.
So how low were you flying around? Were you
Lower than I should have.
Yes.
Let's just say that.
So you could see your mother fairly clearly.
Oh yes, out in the back garden. Oh yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that towel, the way you could see how angry she was when she flicked it. 'Cause she really never approved of all this, you know.
Yes.
She wanted to be dainty. She used to, because I had that little baby sister, 18 months younger, and she had long tapered fingers. The Gwillums were musicians or singers. All the Welsh can sing.
Yes.
So Mum's aunt had a music academy in Cardiff, and she was a Gwillem, but she called herself, when she married, Madam. They were all madams.
Yes.
Different sort of madam, mind you.
Yes.
Musical madam.
Yes.
Gwillem Perring. I'll tell you who one of her pupils were. You wouldn't know, but the oldies would know. They were all musical. I think that's why Mum thought I would. But she'd look at me when she was angry and she'd say, "You're not a Gwillem, you're a Burns. Your sister was a Gwillem. She had beautiful long tapered fingers of a musician." And I used to look at my fingers.
Yes.
Oh no, they weren't musicians' fingers, you know. So yes, that Madam Gwillem Perring, she was a pianist, and her husband was a violinist, and they had a music academy in Cardiff. And one of their pupils was a fellow named Ivor Novello Davis. He dropped the Davis, and he was just Ivor Novello. You would never have heard of him, but he was an actor. And there was a famous movie, a classical movie, a silent movie, called The Lodger. And it's been on ABC once, The Lodger,
yes.
The silent movie, and he was in that. And Mother said he was a pig of a child. Her aunt's name was Rhoda. Aunt Rhoda used to have a Christmas party for her students, and Mother remembers one year at the party she had a bowl of fruit. The things even Mum remembered. And he didn't want that one it was decoratively arranged. He didn't want that one up there. He wanted that big one from right underneath. And because he was a paying pupil, Aunt Rhoda got it out and the whole decoration collapsed. And he became a famous actor in England using his name, just Ivor Novello.
Okay. Yeah.
So I can't think of that, except her cousin was the mayor of Pembroke for 30 years.
Yes.
And we waited for photos. He was going to Buckingham Palace to get the gong and they sent us photos. And we fell about laughing when we saw them. This little Welshman and his plump wife, and him with his top hat and his striped tails, and he looked such a character that, the Welsh aren't awfully tall people usually. Yes. They're more stocky people. So, yeah, they were a family indeed. So, I can't think of anything else. Dad used to tell me about his trips around the world,
yes.
you know. He described when he was in Rio de Janeiro, he called that, in South America.
Yes.
And he used to tell me about the mosaic streets there and how beautiful, and Sugarloaf Mountain there. And when he was in New York during the war, they were selling, America had come into the war then, when his ship was there. And in Times Square, they were selling war bonds. There was, all these names wouldn't mean anything to you. Mary Pickford, Douglas Fairbanks, Charlie Chaplin.
Yes, no Charlie,
They were all there selling war bonds.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and at that same time, you know, there were crowds in Times Square, he said, and he spotted a fellow he knew from Melbourne on the other side, but the crowd was so thick he couldn't get to him. But he checked when he got back to Melbourne, and yes, he was there. So, yeah, and he brought me pictures from Pompeii,
Yeah.
but they've excavated a lot more since he was there.
Yes, yeah.
But all these sorts of things. He told me about when his ship was at Marseille, and during the war, and the French gave the crew tinned food. And when they opened them, they were frog's legs.
Oh,
they,
no.
they threw the lot overboard.
Yes.
Yeah, didn't want those. So, that's all. I went to school, left in year 10, and because I was sick of the uniform and the clubby shoes, and I was already, you know.
So you said you followed Nancy's Bird's career through?
Yeah, because she was always in the news, and I was always interested in her doings. And because she followed it through, and probably, but she married and had a family too.
Yes.
So, but my family was not air-minded at all. And once I had it, I remember my husband saying to me, you know, you have responsibilities now. You have a son, that was the first one. You shouldn't fly anymore, you know. If something happens, what will I do?
Yes, yeah.
So, but he made me a promise that if I didn't go flying, he'd always make sure I had a car, my own.
Your personal car?
Yeah, my personal car. And he always did. I always had it, you know. In fact, if they take my wheels away from me, I don't know what I'll do. I'll have to get a bicycle.
So you like being independent?
Yeah, yeah. But I have to have exams now every year.
Yes.
Tests. See, I never had a test in my life. And
So that's only started recently, has it, or?
yes, once you turn 85,
Okay.
you have to, at 80 you have to present them with a medical certificate every year, and once you turn 85, you have to go for a road test. I've had two already, and they told me I was a very good driver, and I thought, well, I should be. I started driving at 14, so I was driving around for a year before I had my pilot's license, but I couldn't get my car driving license. And yet I was driving everywhere in Hamilton in the old DKW that Felix had, and the policeman up there, one of them, the sergeant, had a lift with me a couple of times in the car, and that's where I turned 18 in Hamilton, and I went in and I told the sergeant, well, I have to see you, Sergeant, and he said, yeah, I thought it was about time you had your licence. So I never had a test.
And that's how it was done in the old days, wasn't it?
Oh,
You went
yes.
to the police station.
Yeah, that's everything, particularly in the country. It was much more easy going in the city, and the city was easy enough going. But because we got away with terrible things. When I think of the boys that used to go and hedge hop with the planes, you know, it drove the farmers crazy because, you know, chasing their cows, got frightened and were running around.
Yes.
And there were always complaints. My only thing was I was very sad when Pat Perry was killed. He's the one I told you made that little homemade plane.
Yes, yeah.
And the wing fell off, and so, yeah. There were sad days, and I never forget the day that the pilot, poor Laurie Johnson, one of the instructors, he had such a lot to put up with. You know, I can remember the day when he didn't tear his hair out when the pupil stalled over the other side of the aerodrome and hopped out and swung the propeller, and he'd left the throttle open. And it chased him around in a circle and tipped up on its nose and smashed the propeller. And, yeah. So, yeah. And that was all behind me until you woke it up and
What?
took me out of my comfort zone.
So that time that you crashed with Felix, take us through the events of that day.
Well, we'd flown down from Broken Hill. We'd been to an air pageant there, and we refueled in Renmark, and Felix wanted to go and see his brother, who was a pastor in PASTOR, not PASTA,
Yes.
and in Adelaide, and we had lunch with him, but coming into land, a willy, you see there was a blind spot in the Porterfield, and but right underneath us was this willy coming across, and out of the blue we were lifted up and stalled and plonked down and over on our back. And gee, we got out in a hurry. I forgot I was hanging upside down. I undid the safety belt and fell down on my head, and the luggage.
So you were in the front?
I was in the front.
Yes.
Felix, thank goodness, Felix was flying it there, but he
Yes.
could blame me that time. In fact, I never damaged the Porterfield in all the flights I did in it, and there were quite a lot. But I nursed it, and I did no damage to it at all. I never damaged a plane.
So the plane was written off after that accident, was it?
No.
No.
No, it was the metal constructed longerons, and when one was broken, and when he welded it, the welder burnt a hole in the fabric, and that had to be repaired. So that's when I hot-footed it back to Melbourne, and back to Mum and Dad to drive them mad again.
Yes.
And then it all transpired then that Howard was coming up. They were forming the school, the flying school up there. And that's when Howard then joined, came up as an instructor, and Felix being he could do everything, Felix, for his young years. It's amazing. Yes. And the old Porterfield then, it finished up. Red Jansett had the same plane, and then after it flew into a tree and Howard was injured, yes, it was a fire. Red Jansett had a fire in the hangar that semi-destroyed his Porterfield.
Yes.
And the flying school Porterfield was damaged, so Red Jansett bought Felix bit, and it got amalgamated with the other half, and it became a Porterfield again.
Yes. So what are your memories with Reg Ansett?
I never saw him smile.
Yep.
No, he and mind you, Felix was not a great smiler either. They got along well.
Very, very serious men, were they?
Very, very serious. So was Felix. Beyond his years, you'd never think. I thought of him as a much older person.
Yes.
It's only since you came into the picture I discovered that he was only a couple of years older than me.
Yes.
So maybe if I'd have known I would have thought, well, he's not all that experienced at that age. My life might have taken a different turn entirely. Because I trusted a lot to him, you know.
Yes.
I trusted him before I knew to pack them. I trusted his packing. I mean, gee, it's come as quite a shock to me to know that.
Yeah.
But
so
he was very, very old for his years, Felix. And of course, Howard, well, he was a real father figure. No? So, yeah.
I suppose in the early days, Reg had a lot on his mind, and obviously
Well, he started off. You see, they grew up. There was John Burge, and there was Felix, and there were a couple of other fellows I can't remember, and Red Jansett. And Red Jansett started with a bus run down to Melbourne. And then he started, I don't know if he had a pilot's license before he started. I don't know, because that was before my time.
Yes.
And I don't know if Felix had a licence, but he couldn't have been licensed all that long, because that means when I was 17, Felix was only 19 or 20.
Yes. Yeah.
So he couldn't have been all that experienced. And Red Jansen's age, I don't know. But I think he was an older man.
So was it interesting to watch him?
I didn't see a lot of him. Every time I met him, I never had conversation with him. I mean, nobody regarded me as anything but a teenager.
Yes. Yeah.
And he treated me, I can remember my dear old headmaster at my intermediate school. He was a major in the First World War. And I used to get into trouble. Our schoolyard, that was co-ed, and we had a white line down the middle. Girls that side, boys that side. But I could kick a mean football, and when they were short, in fact I've still got a scar here on my head where I went into a brick wall at school. It's turned into a bony bump now.
Yes. Yeah.
And I was told not to play football with the boys. And anyway, I had a couple of warnings, but I got enticed to play again, and I got caught, and I was sent up to the headmaster, Mr. Milray. He was a fine man, a very military man. When he stood to attention with his hands, a real military man. And when I went up with the boys, I got quite a shock, because he said, if you behave like a boy, I'm going to treat you like one, and hold out your hand. I got 6 of the best on my hand with the boys. So one day, years later, when I was, I was back in, must have been back in Melbourne and going to work, because the accountant's office was in Queen Street in Melbourne, in the heart of the city. And I was standing one day to cross the road, and Mr. Milray was standing there. And I said, "Hello, Mr. Milray." And he looked at me for a moment, and he said, "Jean Burns, I thought we'd never make a lady of you, but I see nature has taken its course." So he was a fine man.
Yeah.
The boys were all frightened of him. I tell you, when I got whacked, I was a bit nervous too. I didn't go play football anymore. It cured me. So, they were fun years. I had a good, although they were depression years, I had a happy childhood, so I can't complain. Dad used to take me fishing. I didn't like that. But Selwyn, my eldest son, he loves fishing. He'll sit all day with a rod and catch nothing. I could never understand that. But Dad used to take me mushrooming and rabbiting when he left the sea, and shooting. And I think he'd like to have had a son, and he did the best he could with me, and that's probably why I turned out such a delinquent.
And the start of that little painting that hangs in the room that I'm staying in.
Yes, that's where Dad met the artist there.
And what was her name?
Eileen Dent.
Eileen Dent.
I think she was pretty well known in Melbourne. She was primarily a portrait artist.
Yes.
But she told Dad a bit of landscape art to keep her hand in and to relax.
Yes.
So, and I learned to swim in that river that was painted there.
And where was that location?
That was in Launching Place. See, Dad never drove. We used to get the train to Lilydale, I think. Or was that to Nana's place? Can't remember.
Yep.
Yeah. But it's quite a well-known place there. We used to go up there at Christmas, and Dad would fish. I never liked camping.
Yep.
He loved camping. Selwyn loves camping. Roman doesn't. He likes his comfort.
So that location, whereabouts in Victoria was it? Was it near?
Well, I think that river was the Upper Yarra.
Okay.
I think. I know, I can remember, there was a railway line near there, and I used to go, oh, here's dinner.
He's all right.
And yes, I used to run along the tracks and up a hill because there was an orchard there,
Okay.
and we got friendly with the girl, the daughter there. Oh, me. So, well, I think that's just about covered everything. Yes, our dinner's there.